Back in One Wise Fool. None of my videos are staged. None of my videos are thought through. When I put this camera up and start talking, dog, 9 times out of 10, it's because I'm in that mood, I'm in that flow state to give you the message. Or, I'm like, man, let me just drop and let me just let the message come as it go. So I guess the main thing right now, that's on my mind right now as I'm walking to this job, right, is your emotional state, okay? So it don't matter where you at in the world, it don't matter what you're doing, you are trying to go somewhere, right? And I'm not gonna go deep on the nitty gritty of it because, when we get into these talks of growing, I can get deep. And more people can get deep too, but we don't wanna go down the rabbit hole, right? But your emotions. So, I remember I was dating this one chick and she used to sing a lot, right? And I remember, her voice was important. And at the time, I didn't really understand about, how important it was. Now now as I'm talking about this story, I can understand in a way of why, she was telling me what she was telling me about her voice. Obviously, when you singing and you trying to, you gotta have a good, voice. You gotta have water. You gotta make sure your vocals is up and all of that. But I remember, man, she had said something about her health. We was getting into arguments and things like that. And whether she was right or I was wrong, I understand now what she meant. And it's crazy, like one lesson like that can help you out. And we're gonna get into perspective too. But your emotional state could be the equivalent to her voice, right? When you got your mind focused on something, and you trying to accomplish it, the world is automatically gonna try to throw some turbulence your way. That's just like how this world works, man. Like when things come your way, you gotta really observe it and understand it's happening for you, right? Because by default, since you've been growing up, you've been thinking, man, everything that's been happening to you is just by what it is, it is. You know what I'm saying? If it happened to you, you're damned. You got bad luck or whatever. And a lot of the times, that could be so. You could be doing bad and, cause and effect. But a lot of the times, when you're trying to start a new vision, everything just crumbles. You start, you might like, dang, man, I said I'm good now and I'm isolated. But then, as soon as you start that new vision, everything just crumbles. I done seen that happen to me multiple times, right? So when everything starts to crumble, you start to panic. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, bro, then just listen. Because I understand everybody not gonna understand it. This takes experience. This takes sitting with self. This takes to be isolated, to really just sit down and understand yourself, right? I brought that story up to say, your emotional state is everything, right? And it's crazy because you hear about stoicism, you hear about these terms, bro. And these terms come from somewhere, and it's a little deeper than what people think. Everything people be saying, bro, they don't be knowing the word, they don't be knowing the meaning behind it. It's kind of be passed down. And stoicism, bro, you always wonder, why is this person like this? Why is this person just like a statue? You could be acting like that, but for real, when you know what it is you are controlling your emotional state. But why? Well, is stoicism a sport? No. It goes back to what I was just talking about, dog. You understanding that who you are is internal, not external, right? And when you understand the world shows you one thing, you don't react to it, right? When you know who you are, people always say that, I know who I am. Well, do you know who you are within, right? Because if you really understand that when you're creating something, the world gonna throw some hoops at you, some darts at you. As soon as you even flinch, it's kind of crazy. I don't even want to say darts, man. The world gonna try to scare you like a clown. The world gonna try to pop out and scare you. It ain't gonna hurt you. It's kind of like going to a haunted place. You know what I'm saying? All these people, they popping out at you. Don't react. They just want you to react. And I'm not saying the world wants you to react, but understanding the world is a mirror of you. You know what I'm saying? And when you start to react, you know, the mirror starts to change and mirror your reactions. But the minor things, and I mean, I'm gonna call them minor because like, well, when you really observe your world, bro, everything is always just responding to you. But most people live this backwards for almost their whole life. You know, I still see, you know, older folks who react to things, and I'm just like, they don't understand that they creating that, you know. It gets to a certain point, man, where if you stop and you isolate yourself, man, and you just sit in silence, and you just rebuild yourself, and you come back out into this world, and honestly, like, you can be going to a job, bro. I'm not saying just stop doing everything, right? You know, if you living at the house with your mama, it's probably the only time you could do that. So what I'm saying, but if you grown, you can't just stop and just you know, not come out in the world. Nah, I mean, go isolate yourself, right? You know, stop going out on the weekends. Start taking your time and just spending it with yourself and God. That's what I mean. And you just observe everything kind of just stop. You get bored. And then you come back out in this world, man, it's like everything's just gonna be clear. You're gonna be able to see, you're gonna be able to observe everything for what it is. But when you always out going, man, you don't know what you're creating. That's why isolation is important, man. That's one of the main reasons why it's important. And I just want you to know that. I really want you to understand this and really take this in and really just meditate on what I'm saying. You know, your emotional state is everything, y'all. So if you find yourself getting easily mad at different people in your life, you know, these strangers who don't even understand their emotional state, you know, you going down a path of destruction, dog. And those people got you, they got you in prison, my nigga. Like, they got you held hostage. Because if anybody can control you like that, man, you're really not free. You can't even control your own outer world, man. Because you let somebody else control your emotions. You know, this is why a lot of the times you get in a relationship, that thing gotta end. Because guess what? Too many emotions evolve. You know, that person might not understand what you know, or they might do. Or they might subconsciously be playing with you to get your emotional state off. If you're working at a 9 to 5, but this is probably like my last thing I'm gonna say, because I like to give exclusive game, right? If you're working at a 9 to 5, dog, you know, and I mean, my content is pretty much advanced. You know, I feel like you gotta have a certain type of mindset to even understand what I'm trying to say. You know, when I talk about this emotional state, or you can grow into it. You don't automatically gotta be there. You don't gotta be there yet, man. A lot of this type of content wakes you up. It gets your mind going and thinking. You know, before you leave out the house, who are you? When you wake up in that morning time, dog, who are you, right? Like, what does your routine look like? I'm not saying it always gotta be perfect, but if you do this for so long, man, this is gonna become a part of who you is. And people are gonna be able to smell that on you. You know, you can't lie. You can't outrun your own energy. People can pick up on that. You can't fake your energy. Once you dwell in this energy so long, it just becomes a part of who you are, man. You don't react to nothing at all. You understand me? Understand, you know, your boss or something come in and tell you something, don't react. Internally, nod and stay just like this. Don't respond to it. The reason why I keep on saying don't respond, like I said, dog, it don't pertain to you. A lot of shit be projection. It doesn't pertain to you, but it's important to know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you gonna respond, because you're not remaining in who you are. You can't be still in your I am, right? You can't be still in your I am. So you gotta have that I am too. You know, we're gonna talk more about that and get deep into just loving life, bro. Loving life, experiencing life, not being in a terrible lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? And really breaking it down, because a lot of people just follow in the hamster wheel of what they say. what I'm saying? But they not your life. They experience is not, that's not your experience. So how can you, I mean, you could take wisdom from a fool. Something we one wise fool over here. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying, as far as to look at somebody else's life and all their belief systems, you just take on. Don't do that, bro. Don't do that. Do not do that. I did that for a little minute. Don't do that. 22 years old right now, man. It's One Wise Fool, dog. And I'm coming at you with consistent videos. But remember, you know, to go back through this, when you wake up in the morning time, family, you know, how do you feel? You know, make sure that you tapping into yourself. You know, start off small. Start off small. When you wake up in the morning time, you know, just look in the mirror. You know, first you gotta look at your reflection. You know, you gotta start with that man in the mirror first. I mean, it's levels to it, but you look in the mirror, you say, oh, well, you know, I can't even face myself. Well, start there. Before you even doing all this, so I'm talking about reacting. I mean, you could still implement this throughout your day, but before you try to skip all the small steps and the things you gotta do first, do those. Try to, you know, sit with yourself, man. Understand yourself. Because, like, before you try to go pursue any types of success or any types of relationships, you don't need to, I'm be honest, bro. You don't need to pursue no relationship. You don't need to pursue no friendships. You might even have to let go of a lot of attachments. I advise you to. But you're gonna have to let go of those and find self, bro. Because, like, your life don't really start until you start walking in what you really want to be walking in. Because at that point, if you're not doing that, then what are you doing? What type of life are you living? You're not living a life that you want to live. So start in the mirror first, man. That's it today, man. One Wise Fool. I kind of looked old, like, when I did that. You know, I was looking at the camera.